The slave. You were born in a beautiful farm where your father and mother worked hard and they really loved you. Then one day came the invaders. They massacred your little village. You were captured with other young girls. To Greeks, a living girl is worth more than an unalived one. You were dragged by your hair to the black ships, stripped of your name before you clear the harbor. You were sold in a dusty market like a head of cattle, the property of the very man who put your city to the torch. Someone bought you, told you he is your master from now on. You now wake up before the sun. Female slaves were given household work, so you do cooking, weaving, cleaning, caring for children. You live inside the house, and you have never left since you were brought here. The women of the household are your constant supervisors. They scold you for everything and every little mistake. The men of the household can do what they want with you, and there is no law for your prevention. If you have children, they belong to your owner. They are born into the same condition you are in. You weave. Weaving takes hours. Weaving is the only thing that most female slaves in ancient Greece spent most of their lives doing.
The wife. You are married. In ancient Greece, this is what your destination as a woman's life is. From approximately the age of 6 onward, you were engaged by your father when you were a child to a man your father chose, for reasons that had to do with land and alliances and the management of resources. You may have met him twice before the wedding. You were probably 14, he is probably 30. The Greeks did not think this was unusual. Your domain is the oikons, the household. Everything inside it is yours to manage. The food, the servants, the children's education, the accounting, the weaving production, the storage of supplies. The house is the only place where you are given full authority. Respectable Greek women did not go out much. They did not attend the political assembly. They did not eat dinner with male guests. They managed everything and were seen by almost no one outside their family. Your husband trusts your judgment in this space completely. He consults you on household matters and takes your recommendations. Within these walls, your word carries weight. Beyond the door, nothing that is yours. You have made peace with this most days. The priestess. You were chosen from the local peasantry. You were plucked from your family, stripped of your name, and reborn as a servant of the sun god. Your life is now a series of cold requirements. There is no husband to hold you, and no children will ever call your name. Your purity is total. Your body is no longer your own. It is a holy tool. This is one of the few roles in ancient Greece where a woman could have genuine public authority, official religious standing. The Pythia at Delphi, the oracle, was always a woman. The glory and honor of your job has dark, suffocating moments. To tell the prophecy, you must go down into a small, dark room deep under the temple. The air is thick and smells like sulfur. You sit on a high bronze chair over a crack in the ground where strange gases rise. When you breathe in these fumes, your mind starts to spin. You fall into a deep trance. Your body shakes and your voice changes as you speak words that are not your own. You are like a cup being filled with a god's fire, and when it's over, you feel burnt out and tired. Great kings and army leaders wait for days just to hear you speak one sentence. Your words can start wars or save kingdoms. For those few moments, you are the most powerful person in Greece. But there is a sad price for this power. When the trance is over, you crawl out of the dark room into the bright sun. Suddenly, your power is gone. You are just a woman again. You walk back to a lonely room in a temple that owns your whole life. You have the most powerful voice in the world, but you are still a prisoner. The Spartan woman. You are women of Sparta. Not like soft Athenian girls locked in dark rooms. In this city, your skin is tanned by the sun, and your muscles are hardened by the gymnasium. You were not plucked by a god. You were forged by the state. From the moment you were able to walk, you were looked for. Your selection was based on your strength. If you were sickly or frail, you would not have survived the first inspections. You were raised to run, to wrestle, and to throw the discus as far as any boy. Your freedom was real, but it was a tool for the war machine. When you find someone strong, you marry him to make more strong Spartans. When your husband marches to the border, he doesn't leave behind a helpless wife. He leaves a commander. You manage the estates, handle the gold, and keep the thousands of helots, the enslaved workers who outnumber you 10 to 1, in check with a steady hand. You do not ask for instructions because capability is in your hands. When your son turned 7, the state took him. You watched him leave to be beaten and starved into a soldier. You didn't cry. Instead, you handed him his shield and gave him the Spartans' only law. Come back with this or on it. You are the most independent woman in the world, yet every breath you take is owned by the army. The mortal loved by a god. You were born so beautiful that people in your village would stop and stare. They said your skin looked like silk and your eyes held the light of the sea. For a long time, this felt like a gift, but in Greece, beauty is a dangerous thing to own. It draws the eyes of those who live on Mount Olympus. One morning, you were gathering flowers in a quiet field. The sun was warm and the air was sweet. Then the light changed. Apollo was walking through the grass, and he saw you. Maybe it is Poseidon, seeing you at the shore. Maybe it is Zeus. And if it is Zeus, the situation becomes immediately complicated in ways that will affect the next 3 generations of your family. In that 1 second, your life ended and theirs story began. The attention of a god feels like the most amazing thing in the world at first. It is golden and bright, but very quickly you realize the truth. You have lost control of everything. The cost of the god's love. To a god, what you want doesn't matter. They cannot imagine that their desire isn't the most important thing. Like Daphne tried to run from Apollo. He was faster. She begged for help and was turned into a laurel tree just as he reached for her. Now she is wood and leaves, and he wears her branches as a crown. Io was loved by Zeus. Because of his love, she was turned into a cow to hide her from a jealous goddess. Calypso loved Odysseus so much she offered him a life that would never end, but the gods told her she had to let him go. She didn't get to say no. The gods often mean well, but they are like fire. If you get too close, you get burned. You are now aware that you are just a character in their play. You are beautiful, you are noticed, and you are trapped.
The Queen. You are the Queen. You sit on a throne of cold marble, and every eye in the palace is a needle pricking your skin. They want to see if you will break, but they forget. You were not born a queen. You were carved into one by the hands of men who called themselves heroes. You became queen through a blood oath and a golden ring, but your true coronation happened on the docks of Aulis. Your husband, King Agamemnon, looked at your eldest daughter, Iphigenia, your heart, your firstborn, and saw nothing. He traded her life for a gust of wind to sail his ships to Troy. You stood on that shore and watched the smoke rise. You didn't scream. You turned to stone. When he sailed away to find glory, he left you to rot in a silent palace. But you didn't rot, you rose. For 10 years, you were the king in everything but name. You managed the grain, you settled the blood feuds, and you held the walls of Mycenae together while the men played at war in the mud of Troy. You ruled alone, making the hard, dark decisions that keep a kingdom alive. You learned that power isn't a title, it's the ability to hold a knife behind your back while you smile at your enemies. Then, the hero came home. He expected to find a weeping wife waiting to wash his feet. Instead, he found a woman who had spent 3,650 nights sharpening her memory. You unalived him in his bath. It wasn't a crime. It was an eviction. You were the one with the competence. You were the one who had actually done the work of a ruler. But to the Greeks, you were their greatest nightmare, a woman who was capable.
The goddess. You are a goddess, an immortal force of nature carved from the stars and the sea. You do not age, but you carry the weight of grudges that have burned for millennia. Your life is a game of celestial politics, where the stakes are entire civilizations, and the jealous eyes of Hera are a constant shadow across your throne. You could be Athena, born from a scream and a headache, a woman of cold iron who never knew the weakness of childhood. Or Artemis, who saw the trap of the hearth early and traded her silence for a silver bow and the wild, lonely mountains. Perhaps you are Aphrodite, born from sea foam and blood, who realized that love is the most efficient weapon ever forged, one that can burn Troy to the ground. You are powerful, yes, but you are a slave to your own nature. If you are the goddess of wisdom, you can never be foolishly happy. If you are the goddess of the hunt, you must always be chasing. Now you sit upon your altar. The incense is rising. Your domain is yours completely. What are you going to do with it?
The fate.
Beyond the gods, beyond the kings, and beyond the heroes, there are the three fates. They are the oldest powers in the universe. Even Zeus, the king of the gods, must obey them. They view every life, yours, a king's, or a slave's, as a single piece of string. There are three sisters. Clotho, the spinner, she is the youngest. She takes raw wool and spins it into a thread. She decides who you are, a warrior, a queen, or a farmer. She creates the start of your story. Lachesis, the measurer, she holds a measuring rod against your thread. She decides exactly how much life you get. Atropos, the cutter, she is an old woman with sharp shears. When the thread reaches the length Lachesis measured, Atropos cuts it. At that moment, life ends. No god can stop her scissors. There is a famous story where Zeus wanted to save someone he loved from dying, but the other gods warned him, if you break the thread the fates have cut, the whole world will fall apart. Zeus realized his power had a limit. He stepped back and the thread was snipped. Every person in history has lived and unalived by these three women. You have watched every thread begin and every thread end. Now you pick up the wool. You begin to spin. The next story starts with you.